This is Hannibal from the Hannibal TV on YouTube. Going to introduce another clip right now from the Engaging the Phenomena podcast, an interview my friend James did with Lue Elizondo, former head of the Pentagon's UFO program. This clip is of Lue talking about remote viewing and unacknowledged special access programs. Why am I posting clips from this interview? Because not as many people saw it that should have originally. And by the way, the full interview link is in the description. Want to get more attention on it. Also, James from the Engaging the Phenomena podcast is doing a live interview with me January 9th, right here on the Hannibal TV. There's a lot of UFO interviews coming up. So please subscribe and enjoy this clip from James.
And it's, speaking of ATIP, was, I know OSAP kind of may have utilized this, but was there ever any kind of remote viewing talked about in ATIP, and if not OSAP maybe?
Well, James, you definitely threw me for a curve on that one. Let me think about the way to respond to this. I'm going to defer to some of my colleagues. If you want an answer to that question, I would talk to folks like Hal Puthoff. I don't want to answer. That's their area of expertise, and I'll just leave it at that.
Unacknowledged special access programs get brought up a lot, especially when talking about the UFO subject. So, there are such a thing as unacknowledged special access programs, or the waived SAPs.
Of course there are. Yeah, that's in law. You can see that.
Yeah, I forget which title it is. I remember Christopher Mellon actually. He named the whole title.
Yeah, and there's also covert action, which is under Title 50. But that's all. This is these are mechanisms to, the more sensitive of an effort you have, the more you want to protect it from the enemy, and so the more you compartmentalize it.
How do you connect oversight community or bodies?
Sure.
To even,
I'll give an example. With covert action, you have the Gang of Six and Gang of 12. There's always oversight. Even no matter how secret something is, somebody in the chain of command has to know. Period. Even if it's waived or bigoted SAP. And when I say bigoted, people say bigoted. What does that mean?
You have it on a bigot list.
Yeah, right. It's a bigot list. Whether waived or unacknowledged SAPs, someone is still in the loop. Someone has to be, and that all good, because you're spending taxpayer money. Someone has to be held accountable. Otherwise, you run into issues like we did with Operation Yellow Fruit. So there is always an accountability lane somewhere. And if these SAPs are being run without that accountability, then they're not real SAPs. Then they're rogue operations. Then these are operations that are running under the radar and frankly are illegal, because there are very specific guidelines if you want to run those type of programs, and you can't deviate from those at all. So I don't think that there's some waived or unacknowledged SAP at this point. If they are, they're scared shitless, because right now the gig is up. They know. If it gets found out that they've been running these rogue operations with no accountability, they're done. They're going to jail. I mean, today. So it's not. It definitely would not. I would be very surprised if there was some type of rogue operation. Now, I do think there may be some legacy efforts that are falling under authorities that were once put down and now forgotten. It's not uncommon that a memo establishing a program from some Secretary of Defense in 1978 is still being used. We still use, for example, the National Security Act of 1947. A lot of the new rules and regulations that we have coming out of the department and the intelligence community stem from the National Security Act of 1947, right after World War II. Yeah. It's almost been 100 years, and we're still putting that. If you look at a lot of the DoD policies I put out, it'll say in accordance with, National Security Act of 1947. It'll say EO 12333 as amended. And that's the way we do things. And it's not impossible, because I've seen it a couple times where you run into an organization or an effort, and they're saying, well, we're using this as our guiding authority. And you look at whoa, I mean, dude, I was in kindergarten when that memo was signed. You might want to get that updated.
So you think it's possible that there are such programs in legacy programs? And is that what they're actually called, legacy programs?
Legacy, yeah.
Okay. So is that feasible?
It is unlikely, but it is certainly well within the realm of possibility. I do not doubt that some of those legacy programs still exist. Whether it involves the UFO program remains to be seen, because we've done a lot of digging around, and if they exist, they're really dug themselves deep, which is I mean, kudos to them, but I know where to dig. I know where to put the holes in the ground to find what we want to look for.
Yeah.
I do think that there may be some legacy guidance out there that people may still be using to not want to have this conversation. But I think even more importantly, there may be two other issues at hand. Either the technology is so revolutionary that someone has made a decision unilaterally to not share this even with their own chain of command, which is a problem. Or the other possibility as well is that they're scared. Now they know that there's accountability, and now they know that someone's going to have to face the music and tell Congress and the American people and the chain of command that, yeah, we've been doing this whole time, and we've been doing it under your nose, and yeah, we lied to you. We didn't tell you. That's a problem, because there's significant liability there. If you imagine some person, a pilot who reports an incident, and now because of it is forced to undergo psychological evaluation, is taken off of flight status, and as a result maybe is reassigned, and now loses his marriage or her marriage because of this, and furthermore now becomes homeless and loses everything for doing the right thing. It loses everything, is now living on the streets and homeless because they reported a UFO sighting at some point in the past. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but can you imagine the liability? What we would have to owe that individual to come back and say, you know what, we destroyed your life and your career, and at the end of the day, you were right. That's I mean, that you're talking, depending on how many people that's ever happened to, if it's happened, then that's a hell of a liability. I mean, that's one hell of a lawsuit.
Yeah. Now, at this point, I'm sure everybody's familiar that you have been working with Danny Sheehan, the Pentagon. I guess I can say the Pentagon, or the public's spokesperson, has, they put out some statements, saying you didn't direct ATIP, or whatever, whatever they've been saying, which we know is not true. Do you think there's any other countermeasures that would ever be taken, other than trying to delete your emails, or at least claiming that they did?
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, that the fact you're seeing it play out, the fact that they tried to come after my security clearances and make false accusations, the fact that they're trying to rewrite history after the Dana White, the Secretary of Defense's own press secretary, stated what ATIP was and what my role was in it. Now you see this amateur effort to try to change course, and then last but not least, delete my emails. That's problematic. That's frankly now on the verge of an illegal act. But I don't think I have to help them anymore paint themselves in a corner. My intent was always to offer a helping hand and help them out of this corner. And for whatever reason, every time I extend my hand, they recoil and back themselves further into the corner. It's a bit like an angry, hungry dog that has been. No matter how much you try to help it and feed it and pet it, it just wants to bite. And that is not indicative of the entire Department of Defense. I want to make this clear that the Department of Defense does an amazing job 99% of the time, and is full of absolute patriots. Some of my very best friends are still members of the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. The problem is that there are some elements, the same elements that people consider are running rogue regarding the UAP topic. There are some rogue elements in the Pentagon that have decided to make this an agenda for them. And unfortunately, they've dragged the rest of the Pentagon into their pettiness. And it's at this point, it's looking absolutely ridiculous for the Pentagon. And they don't need my help right now looking any more ridiculous. It actually makes me very sad. I wish there was a way that we could simply just have them stop digging themselves any deeper holes. They've already got a
Yeah.
hell of a ladder that they're going to have to climb to get out of it. And ultimately, it disparages the fine men and women in uniform that work in our national security. My intent, I don't want to embarrass anybody. Look, I don't even want an apology at this point. I don't give a shit about that. What I
Yeah.
care is about them being forthcoming and telling the truth to the American people. And again, unfortunately, there's some folks that have taken this personally. Me breaking rank with the Pentagon has infuriated them. And as a result of that, they've dragged through the mud the Pentagon with them. And I think that's a travesty.